So what is the actual purpose of a high school education? Is it still reading and writing and arithmetic? Is it to prepare kids for college, wealth, and retirement? The American dream, right? Welcome to the first episode of Homesplice, where today we're going to dive into the question, what's the point of high school? Only instead of providing answers from adult experts, I'll be sharing what teenagers, the real experts, have to say are the most important things they should be learning in high school. Hey, what's up? My name is Holmes, and this is Homesplice, where we link learning with life. And there's never a better time to think about that connection, school life and real life, than right now in COVID time, when everyone's scrambling and gambling and rambling on about how to do school these days. Seems like the perfect time to rethink why we do school in the first place. The American school system and its function, especially high school, was created for something that no longer exists. Hey, I'm not going to lecture you about the history of public education. The bottom line, the world is radically different today than it was a decade ago, let alone a century. Most of all, adolescence is different. That whole argument that adults like to make, I know what it's like, I was a teenager once. Forget it. You are not a teenager in 2020, so stop. By the way, if you don't care what teenagers have to say, if you think because they're young and inexperienced they don't have facts, ideas, or insights, then maybe Homesplice isn't for you. I'm not saying you have to agree with them. Sometimes they can be flat out ignorant, but so can adults, right? Just one of the many ways teens and adults are alike. More on that later. So, what do teenagers say is the most important thing to learn in high school? Over the past 3 years, I've interviewed hundreds of them from throughout the United States, from St. Louis to Seattle, Minnesota to Maine, New York to New Orleans, and Venice Beach to the Rocky Mountains. And I've coded, categorized, and attempted to objectively interpret their responses. But before I share them, I'd like to know what you think. More importantly, I'd like you to know what you think. In my experience, not many people, even educators, have contemplated this question, the most important question, the purpose of school. At the end of the video, write your response in the comment section and see how your answer compares to others. You can do it in your head, of course, but there's something about writing it down, taking a stand, and making it public that makes it a little more real, a little more actionable. Whether you're a teacher or a student, a parent or a politician, writing down your purpose for school seems like a good place to start connecting learning to life. So, what is the most important thing a teenager should learn in high school? Here are the top 5 responses. Number 5, how to be happy. Kids may act like being rich and famous is the ultimate objective to life, but apparently, feeling content and fulfilled is actually more important. Time and time again, teenagers told me that some kind of guidance toward finding and maintaining happiness should be a high school's main priority. Number 4, how to control emotions, love, anger, impulsivity. Yeah, we know. Research proves that teenagers' brains don't fully develop until their mid-20s. Not exactly breaking news, and teenagers know this too. But that doesn't mean they don't care about self-regulating their emotions and making wiser decisions now. They don't want to wait 5 to 10 years. Number 3, how to develop social skills, how to get along, communicate. When I ask teenagers the most difficult part of high school, most don't say the schoolwork. They say relationships, the skills to get along with peers, parents, and teachers. They see how much adults struggle with communication, compassion, and collaboration. And frankly, they don't want to follow that path. Number 2, how to become independent. How to adult without adults. Maybe they don't act like it, but when asked, most teenagers say they want to be independent. They just don't know how. High school, they say, doesn't teach independence. We tell kids that they must be independent, but we don't teach independence. Teachers and parents expect it, but rarely give kids the opportunity to practice it. And believe it or not, they want practice. Finally, number 1, the absolute most important thing teenagers should learn in high school, according to teenagers, how to know who you are, your talents, your purpose, your meaning. Well, the previous 4 responses came up a lot. None of them came close to this one, knowing yourself. Making some sense of your culture, your genetics, your strengths, struggles, and psychology, the need for introspection, for figuring out the self, was the most frequent response to the question, What is the most important thing a teenager should learn in high school? The only academic responses among hundreds of interviews were history and personal finance, and they were mentioned less than a dozen times. No answers included reading, writing, or arithmetic. No science, no technology, absolutely nothing that is on a standardized test. It's not that teenagers don't believe high school should teach reading, writing, arithmetic, and all the other stuff that make up a high school curriculum. Not a single person said these academic disciplines were not important. But in interview after interview after interview, they said schools should also, and most importantly, teach students the insights and skills to navigate life, how to tackle the big questions. What is happiness, and how do I find it? Why do I behave this way, and how do I control it? How do I make friends and find love and keep both? How do I survive and thrive on my own? And how do I figure out who I am and what I'm supposed to do? Hey, I need to clarify something. When I say that teenagers want answers, when I say they want to be taught how to navigate life, I do not mean they want to be told the answers or given a map. This is a nuance that too many adults, even teachers, just don't seem to grasp. Teenagers often don't want our answers to happiness or self-regulation or meaning. They want the tools to find the answers themselves. They want just enough clues to draw their own maps and find their own treasure. If you want teenagers engaged, and with distance learning, this could be more difficult than ever, but if you truly want autonomous motivation in your students, you better be willing to give them some autonomy. And here is one way, a big way, that teenagers and adults are alike, more alike than we tend to believe. It is human nature to want autonomy, to make choices, to feel some control over our lives, our goals, our future. I mean, seriously, how motivated are adults? How motivated are you when you feel like you have no control over your life? Fortunately, most adults have all kinds of resources available to us. For instance, more than 2,000 books take up an entire personal growth section at the local Barnes & Noble. Like an entire wall dedicated to figuring out life, but aimed at adults. Where are these books, or at least their content, their investigation, instruction, practice, and assessment in high schools? Teenagers, like adults, are begging for some guidance on life, yet we're still obsessed with feeding kids facts they can easily find on YouTube. I'll address YouTube, both its pros and cons, in a later episode. But for this topic, the purpose of high school, it's crucial that we acknowledge what teenagers say they both want and need from their high school experience. The exact same thing we want: how to know who we are, how to navigate life, and how to be happy. Okay, to be clear, traditional academics are still incredibly important for teenagers, and no one is saying throw them out. I'm not saying that anyway. But maybe there's a more common core to the healthy development of adolescence than what we've assumed for more than a century. I don't know. I'm an adult, a teacher of teenagers, but not a teenager. Haven't been one since cassette tapes, World Book encyclopedias, and Little House on the Prairie. So I talk to teenagers. I listen to them. We all should, especially teachers and parents, especially now when distance learning seems to be the new normal. It is amazing what we can learn from adolescents when we shut up and listen, when we actually hear them, not merely wait for them to stop talking so we can impart our encouragement, admonition, or advice. I'm not saying that teenagers don't still need guidance. I'm saying that we're not sufficiently valuing their perspectives. I'm saying that they have something important to say and we need to hear them, regard their voices as instructive and insightful, and respond accordingly in conjunction with our own knowledge and wisdom. We need to include them, their perceived wants and needs, and how we design or redesign the high school experience. And maybe when we go back, when things return to normal, we'll go back with a fresh awareness that normal wasn't cutting it. Oh, by the way, I interview adults too, and their answers to this question, what the purpose of high school should be, their answers are nearly identical. Maybe now is a good time to do something with this. But what exactly is this? Subscribe to HomeSplice and find out as we go deeper into how we can better connect learning with life. Next week, we'll explore the science of happiness. Yeah, there's actual science on this stuff, like not just psychology, but neurology too. If you're skeptical, and you may be, you're not alone. Last year, I had a student who called the search for self, meaning, and fulfillment hippie shit. Hey, Holmes, no offense, but this is hippie shit. Join me next week for hippie shit, or the science of happiness. If you haven't yet, subscribe today and tell your friends. Now is the time to link learning with life. Oh, and don't forget to comment. What do you think is the most important thing a teenager should learn in high school? See you next week.